Hello and welcome, everyone. We are absolutely delighted to have all of you here and very much looking forward to the conversation. Many of you did submit questions ahead of time. Thank you for those. I think we've done a pretty good job of building those in. And of course, we welcome more questions throughout. You do have the option, if you raise your hand, I can unmute you individually and you can come in live. Of course, we do record this and put it on our YouTube channel. Some of you want to come back and listen to it again later, so just know that's where this is headed. And then those of you that also want to ask questions a different way, you can type them in your question panel. I'll monitor that all the way through the conversation so that we make sure we got all the information out there that you want. Very much focused on answering your questions. Of course, we are also going to offer you something for when we complete this program. So, what is the agenda for today's conversation? We're going to talk about coaching. So we'll define it. We will look at some of the statistics and insights that are so significant in the coaching world. We'll walk you through the staircase to success coaching model and process. We'll talk pros and cons of coaching certification. We'll discuss the reasons people choose certification at the Center for Coaching Certification. We'll talk about what to look for in a training program wherever you go. We'll discuss opportunities in terms of completing coach training, and then, of course, give you a good overview of the programs offered. So starting out, before we even get into the definition, I think this one is very fun. It's the paradox of coaching. And it speaks to a very common misunderstanding in terms of what coaching really is. So very specifically, on the one hand, coaching skills can be used in mentoring, managing, counseling, therapy, consulting, and leading. We use coaching skills in all areas of our lives. The paradox is that the skills for mentoring, managing, counseling, therapy, consulting, and leading are inappropriate when coaching, because coaching is very, very different. So let's go further with that. The definition of coaching comes from the International Coach Federation. Several of you had questions on the organization, so we'll give you some information in a moment. The definition itself, check out the language. It's very significant. I absolutely love it every time I read it. So it is that coaching, whatever type, executive, career, business, wellness, life, academic, and there's so many more types. It is a strategic partnership. Partnership being a key word here. So often when we hire a professional, our expectation is that that professional is the expert and they're going to give us the answers and give us advice and tell us what to do and how to do it. And they know that. Well, in coaching, it is unique and different from other professional services because the role of the coach is actually to put the client in charge. It goes on to say this. The partnership then means it's truly an equal playing field. Instead of a power differential, you go into it as partners. And the role of the coach is to empower the client. It is the client who's going to clarify their own goals, create their own action plans, figure out how to move past obstacles, and ultimately achieve what they choose. The power of coaching is phenomenal. Think about it this way. How many times have you given someone who knows you and trusts you, and you've given them really good advice and they don't do it? And the reason they don't do it is it wasn't their idea. Coaching takes more time, more skill, and more patience than just giving the answer. And the reality is, when people find their own answer, they follow through because it's theirs. So the International Coach Federation that provides this definition, let's talk about who they are. They're a nonprofit organization. It's a professional membership organization for coaches. Now, something that's really significant currently in the world of coaching, what we're looking at is, okay, what's required? Do I really have to get trained or do anything? Technically, legally speaking, the answer is no. Anyone can call themselves a coach. As a matter of fact, my dog could call herself a coach. She can hang out a shingle, and if somebody hires her, she's in business. Now, here's what's important to know. Coaching, much like all the other professions before us, is going through a process where we will either successfully self-regulate or government's going to step in and regulate us. And self-regulation is currently in the forefront, and it is through the International Coach Federation. What that means to all of us is when you're going to put yourself out there as a coach, being a member of the International Coach Federation really is the minimum, the gold standard for that. So that membership is significant. Some of the reasons it's so important, yes, they're the gold standard in the profession as a whole. It is also where our code of ethics comes from, and members of the International Coach Federation are accountable to that code of ethics. Think about it this way. If you're going to hire a professional, an attorney, an accountant, whoever else it is, do you want somebody that is not accountable to a code of ethics and has no standards in terms of what their training is? Well, of course not. And coaching is very much the same thing. In addition to members being accountable to the code of ethics, the standards that they provide us, they approve training programs. And if you're thinking about coach training, the single most important thing to make sure of is that it is approved by the International Coach Federation. We have so many people say, I thought it was a great program and it wasn't approved. And then they end up starting over. Now, the good news for you is you still have hundreds of options with that. There are a lot of approved training programs. To become a member of the International Coach Federation requires 60 hours of training. Becoming a member is much like saying, okay, I got my degree, I'm really a coach. If you want to go on and earn a credential, there are 3 levels of credentialing. We'll talk about those and what's required at each level in a few minutes. Here's the way to think about it. If becoming a member is like saying, okay, I got my degree, I'm a coach, earning a credential is like saying, okay, now I have a master's or a doctorate level degree. And that's where you want to go. Now, as a profession, it is the second fastest growing in the world. Number 1 being IT. I guess that's probably not a surprise for anyone being IT. So what does that tell you? It's out there, it's growing, and it's here to stay. The reasons people use coaching, here's a quote just to get that started. Forbes magazine put out the question, do you have a coach? If not, you could be limiting your career success. That straightforward, that simple. Having a coach makes a difference. Now, there's a study that was done that I think does a fabulous job of backing up this information. It was through Amoco Corporation, which is now part of British Petroleum. They evaluated the coaching there over a 10-year period of time. This is what I love about this study. 10 years is a long time, so looking at it for that long is great. And here's what they found. Compared to other Amoco managers, coaching participants consistently demonstrated improved performance, increased ratings of potential for advancement, and check this number out, 50% higher average salary increases. Okay, you tell me, is having a coach worth a 50% higher average salary increase? Of course it is. And then if you think about it, when they get the next increase, it's based on what their current salary is. So that builds. It makes a huge difference. Dennison Consulting calls coaching the organizational development tool of choice, and we are absolutely seeing that in the workplace. When companies do hire a coach, what are the reasons? Harvard Business Review looked at it, and here's what they found. 48% of the time, it is to develop high potentials or to facilitate a transition, sometimes through change, sometimes into a leadership role. So really big in that regard. 26% of the time, it's to act as a sounding board. This is a really good insight. Think about it. Sometimes we think that coaching is all about, okay, what's somebody going to do and how are they going to do it? Well, when 26% of the time it's to have a sounding board, it tells you these are executives at the top levels, highest levels in huge organizations. And for them, it's a chance to think out loud, to brainstorm, and to have somebody challenge their thinking and expand it. And it's powerful, the impact it makes. Now, 12% of the time, it's to address a derailing behavior. When does that come up? It comes up when an organization has somebody on the team that they want to keep. This person is good. They believe in them. They believe this person has the ability, and there's something getting in the way from them being effective and successful. So the company invests in that individual by hiring a coach for them to address whatever it is that's getting in the way so that they are successful in their role. Now, a fascinating insight came out of this study. 76% of the time, when coaches are brought into the workplace, personal issues get addressed. And sometimes people are surprised by that, and other times people say, oh, I get it. Because whoever we are, whatever we have going on in our world, whether it's at home, financial, medical, whatever, it comes to work with us. And when people can address it through the coaching, it means when they are working, they truly are focused and engaged on what they're doing. When an individual hires a coach, they pay for the coach out of their own pocket. What are their reasons for doing it? ICF did a study, and here's what they found. They want to optimize their own performance, increase their own productivity. It goes back to that career coaching idea. They want to improve their communication skills. We see this a lot. Expand career opportunities. I think this one is so important and so under-recognized. Increase their self-esteem. This is huge. Confidence is a factor in everything we do. And when people have an appropriate level of confidence, it means they do move forward and grow and advance. People want a coach to improve work-life balance. We all are doing more with less time. That's just a current reality. And for business management, there are so many entrepreneurs that are really good at the product or the service they provide, and they want a coach in terms of their business. Fortune magazine looked at coaching, and they said it's attracting America's top CEOs because it works. And the article went on to explain the average return on investment is 6 times the cost. Okay, wait a minute, everybody. 6 times. What does that mean? That means 600%. I don't know of any other investment you can do to get that kind of a return. 600% return on investment is phenomenal. And of course, it explains the reason more and more companies have coaching programs. So let's look at, I'm guessing, some of the studies they looked at. Here's one. Very commonly cited study. It was done by Metrics Global. And they found that coaching produced a 529% ROI. And when they added in the benefit of employee retention that was boosted, the overall ROI was 788%. Wow. A different study looked at productivity, and they said training, which has been the go-to for years, increases productivity by 22.4%. When you add coaching with the training, you have an 88% productivity gain, 4 times the impact. That's huge. This was done by Public Personnel Management. One more, Xerox Corporation. Here's what they found, and this speaks to the training as well. If they did a training and they did not do follow-up coaching, 87 of the skills change brought about from the training or development got lost. So that means they got very little out of their training if they didn't follow up with it. So that coaching is an incredible tool. Now, when people decide who to hire as a coach, think about it. You go through coach training, you're ready to put yourself out there. How are they going to decide to hire you? Harvard Business Review researched that, and they said they're looking for 2 things. One is experience in a similar setting. So sometimes I get the question, hey, I'm fresh out of high school. Can I go coach a CEO at a Fortune 100 company? And the answer is it's unlikely. And the reality is that CEO wants to feel like whoever their coach is gets their world. You're not there to give them the answers. It is important that you as the coach understand what their world is. So when we say experience in a similar setting, it's people that have worked in and around that space. So some of your higher level executives, your HR executives, that kind of thing, you've got the experience in a similar setting. You've worked with CEOs in those types of roles and you get their world. Now, sometimes I have people say to me, okay, so if I want to be an executive coach or a life coach or a wellness coach or a business coach, whatever type, are you going to teach me the executive business life or wellness side? And the answer is we teach you coaching. So what that means is the experience that you have that. And experience isn't something you gain by going to school or taking a class. It's something you gain in real life. Now, what we do give you is the second thing offered there, a clear methodology. They want to know that you as a coach have a process, a way of doing what you do. And that is what coach training is going to offer you. And that will be true whichever program you look at. So let's look at the clear methodology. First off, we're going to walk you through the model of the staircase to success. And this model explains how the coaching relationship works, what's going on there. So think about building the coaching relationship in comparison with building a staircase. So if you're going to build the staircase, the first thing that you're going to do is put the framework in place to put your steps on. In coaching, what is that framework? It starts with your training. Just as it does with any profession, any job out there, you get trained to do what you do. And through that training, you are developing competency. In coaching, we have 11 competencies specifically that we're developing. And what we're going to do is with those 11 competencies, we'll walk through them in a little bit. So I have a question popped up while we're talking about this. Will you be able to get this presentation in a printed version? While we don't have it in a printed version, I can share with you, we do post it on YouTube and you'll be able to see it there and access it again. And a lot of this information is also available on the website. So I hope that's going to help. The training develops the competency. Okay, great. Glad that works for you. Thank you for your comments in that question panel. It also, the training is going to empower you in terms of the ethics. It's so interesting because when you come to coach training, chances are you come from a very solid ethical foundation background, etc. You believe in ethics, you believe in following them, and that's fabulous. What's interesting is what people didn't know they didn't know in terms of the code of ethics for coaching, because there are some very important and significant differences. So having that awareness is huge. And we actually have a lot of fun with that part of the program. Now, once your foundation, your framework for the staircase is in place, you start putting the steps on. In a coaching relationship, the first step is an agreement. The agreement in coaching happens in 3 phases. The first is before you go anywhere. You just talk about what it is, what it isn't, how it works, that kind of thing. The next phase is when you are going to work with the client, you sign a written agreement with them. And then the third phase happens every single time you have a coaching session. Before you even get into the conversation, you are checking with the client in terms of what they want out of this particular conversation. And you come to an agreement in terms of the focus of the conversation. Once you have that in place, the next step is understanding. And this happens in all directions. So first off, the coach understanding the client. Who are they? How do they think? How do they process? How do they function? What does this mean for them? It is also the client understanding for themselves. Hey, what's going on for them? What do they want? What's significant? Where do they want to go? And so that understanding of the destination, if you will, and of all the influencing factors in terms of getting there. With that in place, You're developing rapport. And rapport, by the way, is the number one indicator of success in a coaching relationship. It is the single most important thing. And rapport is about the client knowing that they can trust you. And it makes sense that it comes here because it's, first off, they know they can trust you because they know you've been trained, you have your competencies and your code of ethics you're accountable to, you have that agreement with them, and you have that understanding with them. All of that supports the rapport. And with that rapport where they trust you, they can have that true open conversation. And that's where the step of communication comes in. So as a coach, you're listening and listening deeply to what they're saying and what they're not saying. And you're asking powerful coaching questions. This in turn supports the step of exploration, where the client is exploring. What do they want? What is meaningful to them? What are the priorities? What are the potential challenges? How will they move past that? What are their resources? And through all of this exploration, they're getting the insight for developing their strategy in terms of how they're moving forward. And this in turn brings them to the doorway called success, and success is defined by the client. Now, this explains the relationship. Let's look at the actual process, how it works. So in a coaching relationship, we start out with what is called an introductory session. The introductory session is a free 20 to 30 minute mini coaching session. The intention is to give the client a taste of how the coaching works, what it's like, and for both the coach and the client to see, okay, are we going to work well together? Are we going to develop this rapport? Do we click? Because that's an indicator of whether or not we want to move forward. So when we say, yeah, we click, we're going to work well together, and we move forward, the next step in the process is an opening session. And during that opening session, there's a big picture exploration. What this does is empower the client to be aware both of what they want in all different areas of their life and to be aware of influencing factors and competing priorities in terms of moving toward what they want. It often is the case that clients figure out priorities that they hadn't realized in the process. And from there, well, let me put it this way. Have you ever known someone that had a New Year's resolution and then 2 weeks later they couldn't even remember what it was? Well, when you're talking about coaching and a client wants to create meaningful change and move toward those goals, the question becomes, how do they stay on track with that? How do they stay focused and engaged in moving toward what they want? And that is a powerful session. So the process that supports your client's focus and engagement is what happens next. With that in place on an ongoing basis, the client prioritizes what they want to focus on. The coach partners with them as they strategize how they're moving forward, develop their action plans, and the coach is also an accountability partner, checking in on progress, holding them accountable in the way they choose to be held accountable, and making sure you celebrate successes because a win begets a win. So when you acknowledge it and recognize it, it supports the next one. And this continues throughout the coaching relationship. This is your overarching process. Now, the average coaching relationship lasts 12 months. When you reach a stage of completion, and completion may be, okay, they had the sessions that the agreement called for. It may be they've completed what they wanted to complete. It may be they're ready to continue on independently. They've gained what they could at this time. Whatever it is, when it is time for the client to move on because they are complete, we do what we call, first off, setting them up for the long term. How are they going to maintain their progress and continue building on it into the future? And then we have a closing session. And while we call it a closing session, something that we do as coaches is let them know the door is open, because you will find that clients come back, sometimes a year later, sometimes 5 years later. When it is again going to be beneficial for them to have a coach, they'll come back. So that's the overarching process. Let's dive into certification itself. What are the pros and cons? And of course, for me, I want to sit here and say, hey, it's all pros. And the reality is there are, of course, cons. We'll look at both. First off, the International Coach Federation did a study, and they said 83% of individuals who participated in a coaching relationship believe it's important for a coach to possess a certification or a credential. And this number continues to grow. Back to, as a profession, we're moving toward that self-regulation, and people are learning to ask for that. So it's coming up more and more often. Very specifically for you, what are the pros and cons? And I'm going to venture the guess, stick myself out there. I think the biggest cons are time and money. That's the bottom line. The reality is, everyone I talk to, if it weren't for the time and the money involved in coach training, they'd all be doing it. It does take time and it does take money. That is true of anything you're going to pursue in terms of professional training and education. And those are our most common barriers. Now, on the pro side, what are the pros of coaching certification? It's a huge career advancement opportunity, and we'll talk about that. Whether it's simply moving up the line in terms of your leadership, or it's a specific career that you're in that involves coaching, it's an opportunity. It is also a business development opportunity. Whether you want to do this part-time or full-time as an additional service with another type of business, or some people call it their after career. Okay, I'm going to retire and I still want to be doing something. So whatever it is, it's an opportunity that way. And we'll get into specifics. First off, let's go back to the ICF and what it really takes to be a coach. So we mentioned early on the membership being the gold standard. So if you want to become a member of the International Coach Federation, they require 60 hours of training. Now, above and beyond the membership are the 3 levels of credentialing that we talked about. What's important to know is that 60 hours of training is the same 60 hours. In other words, it carries forward. So you have 60 hours of training to become a member. If you want to earn the first level of credentialing called the ACC, it's 60 hours of training. It's 100 hours of experience as a coach. That 100 hours must include 75 hours that are paid, and it must be at least 8 different clients. That is something that, as a coach, you're putting yourself out there, getting clients, etc. They also require you to work with a mentor coach for 10 hours. When you do the application for the credential, you must submit a recording of yourself coaching, and then you take the coach knowledge exam, the assessment. So that is for the ACC credential. If you want to go on and earn the PCC credential, and these two, by the way, are the most common credentials held. The PCC credential is 125 hours of training. 500 hours of experience, the mentor coaching. They require 2 recordings of your self-coaching. If you took the exam here, it's the same exam. And so once you take that exam, you're done. Also, the training hours carry forward. So if you have 60 hours here, then you're adding 65 hours to reach this level. If you have 100 hours of experience here, you're adding 400 hours to reach this level. So it does all carry forward. Now, the mentor coaching, if you did it here and applied for this credential, they do have you do it again. That is something that is different. The recordings are different. Now, to get the MCC credential, you first must have the PCC credential. So it's important to note that if you're going to target one of these paths, be aware of going to the PCC level first. Okay, so now what we'll do is look at how that all works with the Center for Coaching Certification. Some of you had questions on this. If your goal is membership, then we have 2 programs that get you to the membership level, the professional coach and the master coach. If your goal is the ACC, we have you take the professional and the master coach, same classes, and also we offer the mentor coaching. If you want to get your PCC, it's the professional coach, the master coach. We also have the certified coach specialist program, and you choose whether you want that to be specializing in business, executive, career, life, or wellness. We also have a coaching practicum class. Now, what's interesting here is a coaching practicum is part of every single class, and this is a full 30-hour program completely focused on practicing your coaching. And then we also offer the mentor coaching for the PCC level. If you decide to do the MCC level, first you get your PCC, and that means you complete all of these steps. Then, yes, we can do the mentor coaching at the MCC level, and you're going to have additional training hours because at this level, it's 200 hours of training. So hopefully that answered the question some of you had on what the path looks like with us. Please, if you have a follow-up question, just type it in or raise your hand so we can make sure we answer that. Okay, I got a hand up. Let me go back to that slide and let me unmute you. Hello and welcome.
Hello, how are you?
Doing well.
That's great. I just had a quick question. Do you offer the wellness coaching with the ACC path?
In the ACC path, and I'm going to say, is that going to, that's your question because I want to mute you again because of the sound.
Yes, it is.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so the ACC path, because at this level, you are looking only at the 60 hours of training. It is just these two classes. Before we do the specialist level, we require you to have 60 hours of training. And here's what I'll share with you. If you want to go for the ACC credential, you want this class because what is required to earn that credential with the exam and the recording, the master coach class and the mentor coaching are going to get you there. And so in order to go to the specialist class, you can do the ACC path and then take just the specialist class, whether or not you go on for your PCC. Once you've done your ACC, then that specialist class is available. So if you want to ask more, raise your hand again or type in an additional question. I hope that covered that for you and clarified it. So thank you for asking that. I love it when people ask questions. Okay, so I am going to go ahead and move us into the next slide. And here we go with that. So at the Center for Coaching Certification, I find this simplifies it for people. You start with the professional coach class, you go on to the master coach class. At that point, you're eligible for membership. If you know you want the PCC path, then you're going to take the additional training hours we looked at. If your primary target is actually going to be the ACC, then you just continue along this path to get to the ACC level. So after you complete these programs, you start getting your coaching experience. You do the mentor coaching program, you create your recording of yourself coaching, and you do work with your mentor coach on that, and then you'll take the exam. And as I mentioned, these programs here, in particular this one and the mentor coaching, are going to do a great job of preparing you for the exam so that you'll walk into that comfortable knowing that you have the information to pass it successfully. It's when you want to do the PCC that you must add the additional training, and of course it's an option for everybody. Okay, so I think I'm not seeing your hand up again or another question, so I think we're okay, and I'm going to keep going. What are the reasons people choose certification at CCC? Here's what they tell us. First off, and this is a tough one, I realize, for all of you. When you go for certification, you want to know an organization is credible. And that's a huge one. So we're going to talk about how to know the credibility of an organization. The next one is you want the tools for coaching. So in addition to gaining tools throughout the program, one of the things we do is all graduates have access to a coach login page with additional tools available to you. And that's incredibly significant. The ongoing support that we provide. So for example, we do free continuing education. We have a Q&A call every month for graduates. We, of course, have our blogs and our webinars, et cetera, that we do. And we invite graduates to engage in that process as well. We have the social media available to everyone, and it gets even better. We have an online searchable directory if you want to put yourself out there as a coach. We publish a book once a year with chapters written by graduates so that we help people get published and write for publication. So a lot going on in terms of what we offer. The program itself is also often a professional development tool. So in addition to learning coach training and it helping your career, very specifically, there are a lot of professional designations and or organizations that require continuing education. And we'll show you in a minute, this program actually counts as that continuing education. A lot of people take it for the personal development. And then sometimes I have people say, you know, I knew I was going to grow some. I had no idea how much. And they're so excited by the personal growth that comes out of this training program. And another thing that we give every single graduate when you graduate is a dashboard where you can give assessments. So for example, if you want to give somebody the DISC or the emotional intelligence or a 360, there are quite a few different assessments on there, and you have the opportunity to give them at wholesale. So you receive wholesale pricing for that. So that's a huge benefit. It just pays for itself with that one. Now, when they choose certification, what are they looking at? We talked about time and money. So let's explore that. There are programs out there that take a few hours. By the way, those are not going to be approved by the ICF. So it's a red flag if it's less than 30 hours, just so you know. And there are programs out there that last up to 10 years, university programs, etc. At the Center for Coaching Certification, the CPC program is 30 hours. The Master Coach is 35. That's where you have the training for either membership or the ACC. The Coach Specialist is 35 hours, and the Coaching Practicum class is 30 hours. That's where you get the hours if you plan on pursuing the PCC credential. In terms of location, there are options. Some programs are in particular locations. At the Center for Coaching Certification, what we do is we offer programs either online. We do them in major cities around the U.S., and I know we have a lot of international students. They typically go to online classes, although some of them do come to one of the major cities. And then we also do them for your group. If you have a group of people, 6 or more, we'll schedule a class for your group. Then in terms of cost, that money factor that comes in, the range is huge. And I put up 400 to 20,000. I've had people say, yeah, 30, 40,000, depending on where they go in terms of earning that. At the Center for Coaching Certification, the first step, the professional coach program, is $16.95. The Master Coach and the Coach Specialist programs are $19.95 each, and the Coaching Practicum class is $18.95 each. We work so hard to keep this manageable because we know sometimes people are coming out of pocket for it. Sometimes it's their employer that's covering it, and it's important to them that that be handled and manageable in terms of the budget. So we work really hard to do that and are super excited about offering both a price that works and the quality. Now, in terms of the program itself, a bit of background on the philosophy we have for the training that we're doing. First off, we see everybody that comes to the program as somebody that is already bringing a level of competence. And what we want to do is take the competence that you have. We want to build on your strengths. We want to develop the skills that are specific to coaching further and create a synergy between what you have now and where you're going. This process supports confidence, in part because we give you the tools. It's about empowering you, the awareness of it. Above and beyond that, and here's what's really significant, confidence is a factor. So what we talk about is when the coach is confident in themselves, when the coach is confident in the coaching process, and when the coach is confident in their client, they're going to be more successful. The same is true of clients. When the client is confident in their coach, confident in the coaching process, and confident in themselves, that's when they move forward successfully. So having the tools to build both the confidence of the coach and of the client and truly empower them for moving forward, that's a big piece of what's behind the training we're doing. It's also about choice, because as a coach, you want choice in terms of different approaches and techniques and tools. And so we're looking to give you that. We want you in the program to discover a number of the different tools and resources that are available, to think about how you're approaching it and really effectively partnering with your client, because in that coaching relationship, you're doing those same things. You're discovering together, you're empowering the client in terms of developing their strategies, you're partnering with them and moving forward. So you want a program that develops that in you and for you. Now, in terms of that credibility question, what do you look for? How do you know if it's any good? As we mentioned earlier, the single most important thing to look for is whether or not this program's been approved by the International Coach Federation. Number one indicator right there. As I mentioned, that does give you 200 or 300 choices. So how do you further refine that? Well, let me throw out this one. ACTO. Are they a member of ACTO? Much like the International Coach Federation is to coaches as professionals, ACTO is to the schools. It stands for the Association of Coach Training Organizations. So when you have a coaching school that is a member of ACTO, here's what this tells you about that school. The school has a code of ethics in terms of their coach training. They have competencies in terms of being coach trainers, and they're part of ongoing development, continuing education for themselves to further elevate what they're offering you. When you see a school that is a member of ACTO, that tells you a lot about that school and what they care about. So much like as an individual coach, the standard is being part of the ICF. For a school, the standard is being part of ACTO. Now, above and beyond those two, and this is where we start to differentiate ourselves as a school, we are accredited by IACET. Now, this is huge. IACET stands for the International Association for Continuing Education and Training. That means we're accredited to give CEUs. Where that adds value, if you have a professional designation or a job that requires you to have ongoing continuing education, this counts for that. For example, if it's a CEU that's been accredited by IACET, most colleges and universities accept it. Professional organizations. So for example, SHRM, the Society for Human Resource Management, HRCI, ATD for talent development people. We also see actually attorneys and financial planners and mental health professionals, and they use this program as continuing ed to maintain their other licenses or designations. And that's a tremendous benefit, and that is something that is unique, and we love that we can put that out there. Another big one is we are also accredited by the Project Management Institute for project managers. And we are accredited by the Association of Image Consultants International as a continuing ed program for them as well. So that gives you a lot of insight in terms of what is offered by the school and the credibility of the organization. Above and beyond that, we like to talk about who's in the program. And some of you actually asked that question, tell me about who else is in this class. So here's what I can share with you. We see a lot of people who are members of ATD, the Association for Talent Development, members of SHRM, Society for Human Resource Management, or HRCI, Human Resource Certification Institute. FPA is financial planners, NSBA is small business owners, AICI is image consultants, of course ICF, because members of ICF have ongoing professional development requirements too. ISET, people that are members of ISET get what that accreditation means. A lot of mental health professionals, consultants, project managers. Here's what this is all indicating to you. We get people that are educated and experienced and really significantly have a passion for empowering others. What that tells you is who's going to be in the class with you are people that are motivated to learn, they're positive, they're proactive, and they truly want to make a difference for other people. And it's fabulous because there's so much learning from the other people in the program in addition to learning within the program. So it's exciting. It's really exciting. Now, the competencies that are going to be addressed, whatever program you look for, make sure you're getting all 11 of these. So what are they? These come from the International Coach Federation. This is a simple listing. There's a lot more depth and detail to these. So know that first off, they organize the 11 competencies into 4 different categories. So the first one is called setting the foundation. And this is where, number 1, as a coach, you're meeting the ethical guidelines. And that requires learning the code of ethics, knowing what that is, and then following it. And then you establish the coaching agreement. So we talked about that being in stages. And of course, in addition to the written agreement, every single coaching session, what the client wants out of it. The next area of competencies is co-creating the relationship. Back to this is truly a partnership. Establishing trust and intimacy with the client is where you develop rapport with them, and it is huge. Coaching presence refers to being in the moment and truly aware of how the client is thinking and processing and what's going on for them, so that you're, as a coach, asking those probing, powerful questions. Communicating effectively brings in all of our communication competencies. So the listening, and the irony here is that most of us say, yeah, I'm a good listener. And if you ask people, do you think others listen well? Most of the time they say, no, not so well. So there's a gap there. What are the listening techniques that really make a difference every single coaching conversation? Next is powerful questioning. Coaching questions are different than any other type of question out there. So looking at the different types of questions and knowing how to formulate powerful coaching questions. Direct communication is about being clear, respectful, and succinct in the conversations. Then the competencies of facilitating learning and results. This is where it's so much fun. Creating awareness where the client has those light bulb moments. Supporting them in designing their actions, doing the overall planning and goal setting for themselves. And then, of course, being their accountability partner to manage their progress and recognize their own successes. So who's going to benefit? When you think about those competencies, it's so easy for me to say all of us. I literally believe I am a better mother and grandmother because of learning coaching. It's a skill set that helps in everything I do. And of course, it helps professionally. So people in all walks of life are benefiting from what they get out of this. Let's tie it in specifically. We mentioned earlier career opportunities. Well, one of the big reasons it's such a benefit in terms of career opportunities in any capacity goes to some of the research that's out there. So maybe you've seen this one, a Gallup poll. Number 1 reason people quit their job is because of their boss. They don't leave the company, they leave their boss. This was backed up. Business News came out in 2011, when the economy was in the tank, it was a down economy, and 84% of people out there wanted to quit their job. Oh my goodness. They couldn't because they couldn't find a different one. At the same time, it tells you a lot about productivity and engagement. So when you think about what this means, coach training makes people better leaders. They're better leaders because they know how to listen differently. They know how to ask those questions, and they know how to really empower people to do what it is they're going to do. And that makes a difference in their leadership. It makes a difference in their employee retention. It makes a difference in engagement and productivity in the workplace. It's incredibly significant. And that's the most important piece of it being a career opportunity. Now, above and beyond that, yes, there are jobs that request or require coach training. Most commonly, we're seeing that in talent development, HR, organizational development. And then, of course, an increasing number of companies have a coaching program where they're hiring people specifically to be coaches within those organizations. On a more personal level, the skill development opportunities. Think about it this way. You're going to develop communication skills. We use those at home, out with friends, in our communities, and of course at work. Our people skills, our ability to recognize different personal styles and then know how to flex to people based on those styles. And goal setting, a truly effective process for setting goals and following through. On the business opportunity side, here's what the research tells us. ICF studied this. What's the hourly cost for coaching? It ranges. Now, of course, a lot of people look at that, okay, 100 to 3,500, big spread, median 500. Let's break it down further. If you're talking about life or career coaching and individual hiring, you're most commonly looking at $100 to $200 a session. If you're looking at small business coaching, it's more commonly in the $200 to $400 range. And if you are looking at executive coaching, it's more commonly in the $400 to $600 range. So it gives you an idea of what the cost is. Currently, there are 53,300 coaches worldwide, generating $2.356 billion. That number by itself sounds like a lot. And guess what? Think about how many people there are in the world. There's a lot of room there, a lot of room for more coaches. So in terms of a business, whether it's an add-on service, a part-time or a full-time, it's a great opportunity. Let's dive into the programs themselves. I know this is one of the things a lot of you really wanted to see. How do they work? So the Certified Professional Coach program starts with a series of online classes. The key difference between what you're in right now and the one you take there is that everybody's unmuted. So we work with all of you to be in a quiet, private place, checking on sound quality with your microphone, etc. And you'll see a list of who's in class with you. So you all talk and you participate and engage throughout. It's highly interactive. Participation is actually one of the requirements. So the first class is called About Coaching. We talk about what coaching is and is not. We model what happens in that initial phase of establishing the agreement. And in addition to that, part of what's going to come out of that class is you're going to self-assess on your coaching competencies. As a sidebar for you, the part of the agreement where you do a written agreement, we actually give you 5 examples on your coach login page so that you have that piece of it as well. The next class is on ethics, and we have so much fun with that class. It's so funny. Sometimes people say, gee, I wasn't sure about that, and they're pleasantly surprised. We say, hey, what does this mean to you? Hey, if this is the situation, you got that scenario, this is happening, what do you do? How do you handle it? And at one point, we actually set up a debate over how to do something. So it was a lot of fun. Then we do a class called Understanding Your Client. And in that class, we are giving you a very specific tool to recognize how your client is thinking and processing, how they're interacting, and that influences what's going on for them. And so giving you that awareness, you want to be self-aware, knowing yourself, and you want to be aware of your client. And that helps you develop rapport because it gives you insight in terms of how to adjust to your client. We do ask everybody to come with your sense of humor because we're talking about ourselves, so it does get fun. Then we do a class on communication, and we're giving you very specific techniques. And I've got to say, I've had professors that teach communication and am absolutely honored by how much they learn when they take the communication class in this program. So it's some very specific techniques in terms of how you communicate, the listening, the powerful questioning, exactly how you want to formulate those questions, a formula for that, and how to be clear, direct, and respectful. Then we move into focus and motivation. Great class. We, number one, recognize how a client is learning information. We recognize how they're talking about things. We recognize how they're thinking about things. And we put that together in a way that truly supports both understanding them and empowering them as they move forward. Now, with each of the classes, you do have a homework assignment. It is part of the credit hours for the program. In the first two classes, it will involve additional reading and research. And in the next three classes, it's practicing the techniques we give you in your everyday interactions and writing about the outcomes. Then we have a group session with everyone. And this is a chance for Q&A, review of resources that'll be available to you, and really exploring whatever it is that's coming up for that class. From there, we move into the coaching practicum. During the coaching practicum, we partner you with others in the program, and you will have a chance to coach one of your classmates. You will have a chance to be coached by one of your classmates, and you'll have a chance to observe coaching with your classmates. So the coaching practicum is an absolute game changer for people. It's a phenomenal process, and we definitely give you a very specific, actually a couple of models that you can use. You'll practice with them in the program. At the end of the coaching practicum, we have a case study. It's a very simple outline of how you handle an initial conversation all the way through a challenge in a coaching relationship. We walk through that with you. So it's very clear and simple. After you complete your certification, we have the monthly Q&A call available to you. And in addition to that, on your login page, we have recordings on business and marketing. We put that there because some people are coaching internally and some people are doing this as a business. So we want that available to the people who want it. And then we also have recorded coaching sessions you can listen to. Of course, we do provide that continuing education as well. In the Master Coach program, we start with the online classes again. The first one is group and team coaching, and we put that first because part of the program and your practicum is going to be doing group and team coaching. They are scheduled sessions, and for one of them, you'll be the coach. Then what we're going to do is every single area of competencies, we're going to dig into those competencies deeper. We're going to talk about what not to do when you're coaching. We're going to talk about what to do when you're coaching to really further develop and apply those competencies. So in ethics and agreements, we cover the competencies for ethics and agreements. For coaching process, it's the competencies on establishing trust and intimacy and on your presence. People in communication include your competencies on listening, powerful questioning, and direct communication. And then creating change with confidence includes your competencies for creating awareness, designing actions, planning and goal setting, and then managing accountability. Then we have a class on time and money, because realistically, just as time and money is a factor for people on whether or not to take coaching certification, it's a factor for clients on whether or not to hire a coach. And it's a factor in so many things they do. With each of the, and we will have a final debrief that comes after you do your practicum portion. So let's look at that in a moment. The pre-work and report assignments, it's the same amount of homework in the professional coach. The difference is we have you do part of it before class and part of it after to really be aware of where you're at ahead of time and where you're going afterwards. We give you questions to answer, and the more you use real examples, the more you get out of it. The practicum itself, as I mentioned, includes the group coaching that we do. And then we also have individual coaching. It's a fabulous process. You'll interview classmates. You'll be involved in choosing who you want as a coach. And then you'll schedule. Now, when you schedule, here's what's great about it. It's you, your client or your coach, whichever one you're working with in that session, and your trainer, and that's it. So you get a ton of dedicated time during this process, and then at the end you complete a final report. Now, the Coach Specialist Program. What we do here is go further with what are called the PCC markers. The PCC markers are how your coaching is evaluated when you submit a recording to the ICF. So what we're going to do, first off, we're going to do an overarching, you have your competencies, and then depending on your specialist area, there are different strengths that are important. From there, we move into the markers for the ethics and the agreement stage of the coaching. And we're going to talk about, okay, how do you actually demonstrate that marker or show that's happening in the engaging and understanding your client process? The coaching relationship itself, how do you demonstrate? What are examples for how the marker comes up where you are creating that trust and intimacy and being truly present to your client? Then we move into client priority management, and we're doing a deeper dive with the markers for the communication competencies. And in the client's future, a deeper dive into the competencies for awareness, actions, planning, and accountability. Then our sixth class is challenges and trends. And this is really, hey, what's going on for you as a coach? What are the trends in the future, things to be aware of? We do have a coaching debrief of your practicum, just like we did in the Master Coach class. In this program, there's advanced reading assignments, and then you have homework after each class. We, again, will give you questions to respond to. The coaching practicum is very similar to the Master Coach class. You'll do group coaching sessions, and you'll have trainer-supervised real-time coaching going on where you are involved in interviewing and selecting a coach from your classmates and scheduling those sessions and a final report. The coaching practicum class itself, for those of you doing the PCC path, is a further extension of the practicum sessions. So we'll do a webinar to review the competencies and the evaluation process. Then we do a class on group and team coaching to set up that happening. You will have 6 group coaching sessions that are scheduled for the class, and then you will schedule 5 individual sessions. You'll schedule 5 as the coach. You will schedule 5 being coached, and then you'll actually do your observation via recording. There is a coaching debrief at the end, another webinar, and that completes that program. Whichever class you take, what's included? A lot of people want to know what's included. So let's talk about it. Of course, all of your class materials. When you do your application and pay for the program, we give you access to a login for students where you have access to your materials for the program. When you graduate, we give you your coach login, which includes additional resources for you. We give you the assessment dashboard we talked about where you can give dozens and dozens of different assessments. It's got a lot more too. It gives facilitator guides and debriefing, and it gives you sample reports, etc. So it's a fabulous resource. The opportunities that we create through our Find a Certified Coach directory, through our Coaching Solutions business development effort, getting contracts and placing coaches. In addition to that, we give you the guest blogging opportunity, guest presenting as a way to get in front of our audience and get yourself out there. The opportunity to get published. I got ahead of myself. I mentioned the online directory and I mentioned our business development team. So very much about supporting you after the fact too. What's your next step now? Well, first, I promised at the beginning there'd be something at the end, and here you go. If you want a 30-minute session, and you can use it for coaching or what you want, let me know. I will send you an email to a link of this recording on YouTube. If you respond to that email, I will send you a link to my calendar and you can schedule 30 minutes. I do want to let you know I have a couple of big things happening in the next few weeks, so I know it's going to be several weeks out on that time. My apologies in advance. If you want to talk to somebody on my customer service team ahead of that, let me know. In the meantime, I'm happy to be available personally as well. The application itself for whichever class you're looking at is free. It's really nice because it has you checking off what's required and it has you thinking on paper. What's your interest in the program and what are you bringing to the table? When you know which class you want, we have multiple schedule options. You definitely want to look at the schedule page, figure out what works for you because you do have to plan on being there for all of the class times. The way you hold your place in that class is paying that registration on it. So I want to thank each and every one of you for being here. I appreciate your time today, your participation. I think I've done pretty good on as you threw questions in. I think the ones that fit, I was addressing them where they were, and then of course taking the other ones. Whatever else you want to know, please let me know. I'm hoping we've covered what you were looking for out of this. I do want to thank you for your time and your interest here, and thank you for the comments you're putting in the question panel. I'm really glad to see this was helpful to you. Very much the reason for doing this. So thank you for your thank yous. I appreciate that. Based on what I'm seeing there, I believe we're complete at this point in time. Do watch for an email from me within a few hours giving you access to this recording. So thank you, all of you, and make it a great day.